Hello, welcome to a second Forest Focus podcast of the day, a shorter one and something of an emergency one, potentially at least, as it's reported Nottingham Forest could soon be charged with breaching profits and sustainability rules for the Premier League, basically that's FFP, in the next few weeks. So I'm going to talk briefly about what that means, what kind of danger the club are in, having spoken briefly with football finance expert Kieran Maguire, who is quoted in the Times today. We'll look at how Forest have reacted and what's coming down the pipeline, basically. So what's been said, first of all, basically Premier League clubs will learn in the next few weeks, January the 14th, in fact, if they've been guilty or not guilty, charged and accused of any breaches of FFP, we'll call it, profit and sustainability. And then they'll have till the end of January to lodge any appeals if they are charged. And obviously Forest, it appears, are sailing rather close to the wind and are under some scrutiny, to say the least. Yes, so it was reported in the Times earlier that Forest are in the most danger, according to Kieran Maguire, based on losses incurred in the last couple of years on the way to promotion and then heavy spending after promotion. Obviously, we've seen those 30 signings over the course of last season, 42 in total since they were promoted. So the wage bill has obviously ballooned in that time as a Premier League club, and they've spent a lot of money on transfer fees, around 250 million, with the backing of Evangelos Marinakis. So more specifically, Forest can lose 61 million for the period covered, which is 2020 to 2023. For Premier League clubs, it's £35 million a season. Obviously, Forest are in the Championship for 2 of those seasons, and that means you can lose £13 million on average in total. So it's 61 million, £13 for each, £13 million for each Championship season, and £35 million for last season, 2022-2023. Forest did lose heavily in those first 2 seasons, and now they're basically under some pressure. It seems like there's a recognition from the club in that sense, which I'll come on to. The defence around it all seems to rest on the sale of Brennan Johnson, £47 million to Spurs on transfer deadline day. So the Telegraph are reporting that Forest submitted last season's accounts ending on June the 30th at the end of the year, so last week, and that's important for a reason I'll come on to. Basically, they've hired Nick DeMarco, who's a top KC, top sports lawyer, King's Counsel, to argue their case. Nick DeMarco represented the club and Harry Toffolo when he was charged with betting breaches and irregularities, and they must have done a good job because Toffolo was given a suspended ban, and obviously he's playing very well. So they brought in Nick DeMarco to argue their case, and they're saying that they were being financially prudent by holding their nerve and selling Brennan later in the window on deadline day to Spurs, rather than rejecting a lower bid for Brennan from Brentford in June, 30 million, and then 35 million in July. So obviously that's the first bid is within the accounting period. The second is after that. For the accounts in June the 30th, Brennan went on transfer deadline day. So that's outside of it, but it seems like Forest's case is that they were being financially responsible by getting the most money they could for one of their players. And it's important to remember with Brennan, obviously, that his sales pure profit as an academy product, so that has a massive impact on FFP. You can spread out, you can load it all in as pure profit, and it really helps. And obviously Forest have spent that money themselves heavily on players like Sangare and Dominguez, and they also sold, again after the reporting period, Scarpa and Sam Surridge. So there has been outgoings, but we know Forest spent so heavily. You know, they've still got, as we said earlier on today's podcast, first podcast, they've got Shelvey, Dennis out on loan, McKenna's a bit out in the cold at the moment, things like that. So the squad is massive and unwieldy, which does kind of put them in the spotlight a bit. Sounds like this has been bubbling away for a month or so, and now it's come to light. So what does it mean? What's Forest's chances? Like I said, I spoke with Kieran Maguire earlier from the Price of Football podcast, and he was saying Forest are close to the limit, and it's going to come down to the minutiae of the Brennan sale and the figures involved, the terms of the deal and everything. It's all very intricate, and we don't really know everything about it in terms of the accounting and the clauses and everything like that. So that's what Forest are arguing heavily in their defence. FFP is further complicated by what they call virtue spending. So that's things like promotion bonuses, infrastructure investments, academy improvement, training ground improvements, stadium improvements. Obviously, we've seen a lot of that around the stadium. Forest pushed into Category 1 academy status in this reporting period. They've spent £2 million on a pitch, promotion bonuses obviously as well. So the ownership have invested heavily in the ground as well. And you can sort of write quite a lot of that off in terms of FFP. So that further clouds the matter because, as Kieran Maguire was saying, he hasn't seen the balance sheets for that. So we don't know exactly how much has been spent on that and the impact of that. And finally, the reporting period includes COVID, when the rules are changed and a lot of stuff could be written off. And that presents further complications of things that we haven't seen. So that's kind of where we're at. The question is, should we worry? I think every Forest fan's become an accountant on Twitter in the last few hours. I think really we don't know is the answer of what's going to happen, and we just have to wait. I think it is a kind of a watching brief. Excuse me one sec. Not used to talking so long. Yeah, so I think fans are just going to have to wait until the 14th and see. Obviously, there's some trepidation in Forest, I would say, if they're hiring Nick DeMarco to argue their case. But then again, they've got to be prudent themselves and defend themselves. And I think they seem to be briefing the media. They're confident that they're going to be all right. So we just have to wait and see, really, I think. I don't think it's a case for blind panic. I don't think it's a case for complacency. It's obviously a case for some caution, but you have to leave it in the hands of the club and the Premier League. But one of the final factor, like I mentioned earlier, the Premier League changed the recording dates for submitting accounts. So it was last week rather than March. So it means they can resolve the case this season. So any possible points deduction would go on the ledger, the table this season. So we've seen that with Everton already, a 10-point deduction. Not saying Forest are going to get a 10-point deduction. We just don't know what's going to happen. But yeah, Man City and certainly Man City are in the spotlight. That's not being resolved, but it looks like anything that happens with Forest would be resolved this season. So it could impact the bottom end of the table significantly. So that's another concern that we just have to wait and see. But in short, it's in the hands of Forest and the Premier League, and the club seem to be certainly briefing the media that they're confident, and we just have to, I don't know, hold on nerve, I guess, as fans. I don't know what the right term is, but Nick DeMarco seems a top operator, and from speaking with Kieran Maguire and reading around the matter, it sounds like there's certainly some concern, and speaking with a couple of people, it sounds like Forest were slightly wary of it in this time last year with their spending, but yeah, they did push on, and they pushed on again in this summer, and they've made some significant signings. So even if they're clear this time, then I think it's something we're going to have to be wary of, and yeah, we can't have these huge spending sprees in terms of signings again potentially. But we'll have to see how it unfolds, and we'll probably discuss this more tomorrow. We'll do a live Q&A with Greg and Mark Southerns and get their take on it. And obviously, if there's any further developments, then we'll keep across those in the meantime. So yeah, join us tomorrow. Hopefully this was moderately informative, just to show where Forest are. I know it doesn't answer the question, should we just ignore it, or should we be panicked? I think one final thing I'll say is, I don't think it's an agenda against the football club or just stirring the pot journalism. I know people immediately seem to say that, but these stories in the Nationals are well researched and well sourced, I would say, from my experience of working in that industry, and nothing's ever made up, as much as some fans would like to think it's all just concocted from the brains of the reporters. It never is. So yeah, we'll leave it there, and we shall see you tomorrow, hopefully Sorry, this isn't a more conclusive video. I just want to give a bit of kind of background of what's happened and what might happen. But the next stage is seemingly January the 14th, when the club will find out what's happening and the public will find out what's happening in terms of the fans. So hopefully nothing happens, and we can keep worrying about what happens on the pitch with Nuno. Obviously, that's been very good recently. But if anything does happen, then we'll keep you posted on that, and we'll discuss the fallout of it and any questions that need to be answered. But I think that's just a bridge that we cross if we have to when we come to it in mid-January. I'm just going to read a statement that Forest have given to The Athletic. It's issued since I recorded the video. Important to get that in, I think. So this is what the club have said. The club has fully complied with its reporting obligations in respect to the Premier League's revised profit and sustainability rules. Promotion to the Premier League will always create challenges, and the treatment of promotion bonuses is just one example. The club approaches all such challenges with its long-term financial sustainability firmly in mind, as the Premier League rules intended. So that's a statement from Forest that I just wanted to get in there. Right, thanks very much, everyone. Good to have you with us as ever. Do like and subscribe. Quick word for our sponsors as ever. Very grateful for the Trent Navigation. You can go and watch the game against Blackpool on Sunday, 2 o'clock kickoff in the FA Cup, open for 10 a.m. from breakfast if you're not going to the game, and then hang around afterwards. They've got the big tie of the round in terms of the biggest clubs individually involved. Arsenal versus Liverpool. That's a 4:30 kickoff, and that's live on the 15-metre square outdoor screen, which I'm sure you all know so well. Right, thanks very much, everyone, and we shall see you soon.